Welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts, Chris Noble and Bill Protzman. On this podcast, Chris and I offer a spontaneous, ongoing conversation about how music is intertwined with healing and consciousness. Our first season helped lay the foundation and build some of the superstructure for what we want to do here in Season 2, where we'll be welcoming some intriguing guests, going deeper into ancient mysteries and wisdom, and cultivating your background knowledge and curiosity. We hope these discussions will inspire your own study and practice of the musical and healing arts, and that your contribution to advancing world consciousness will be satisfying for you and transformative to those around you. Let's get started. Hey, you know what? This is a weird thing, but you're reminding me, you said inspiration, all that, and over the course of the summer, I had two totally unrelated projects come my way. People say, I have lyrics here. Bill, can you put music to these? And it's been such a crazy thing. And of course, the answer is yes. It's all spec. Nobody pays you for this stuff, but you never know. You might get a good song, right? And you never know. But have you ever had an experience like that where you're collaborating? And maybe we should talk about our process today, our creative process.
Yeah, there we go. There's a topic we can fall into.
We can get around to.
Yeah, I can get around to that. Creative process. Well, I mean, what is it like for you, Bill? I mean, I'll happily give you mine, but I'm curious to hear on your end. What is that like, and does it change? Well, I know it does because I'm sure it does for you, but is it different depending on the person too, right? The collaboration.
Oh, sure. Or if I'm going to do a solo album, I can be inspired by a sound, like playing around with sounds on the keyboard. It's like, hey, this sounds like a good one. Let's see what we can do with this. And pretty soon you've got some weird version of Jingle Bells. Right?
The sound is actually for me. That's a big one. Is the tone. Sometimes I wonder. I'm like, am I going to write this song better or not better? But am I going to write this song? Period. More from the tone of the let's say instrument I'm choosing, or from an existing idea that's already in my mind, or maybe from a set of lyrics, or from an entire concept altogether. Like it really also depends on is it my creation just coming purely from me, or is it a contract or someone paying me to create?
And the lyrics are hard because, some people are poets and some people aren't.
Yeah. And I used to think I wasn't a poet, and now I'm like, well, I won't call myself a poet, but I definitely know that I can write lyrics because at this point it's like, I'm just the creative process for me is just to put down whatever's coming in and try to take off my filter more than anything.
Right. Yeah, that's the big thing. I don't know if I have a process. I mean, talking about the creative process, I don't think I have a process. It's simply to get out of the way.
I think that's the biggest part of the process, is to get out of the way. That like I was saying before, I think for me the best performances I've ever had, the best writing I ever have, the best creating I ever have always comes when I'm out of my own way, when I am letting the process come in very, very clearly, very, very organically, and the less left brain, logical thinking. This is the writing and creative process. This is not editing, mixing.
Yeah. This is actually
that's when you go to your left brain, you get logical when you're mixing and mastering and editing. But when you're creating and writing, it really is that right brain flow state. And if I've learned anything about flow state, it is really trying to get out of your own way. That's every time. It's
every time.
And what about that? No.
I have been surprised by technology in the last couple of months. A lot of this composition stuff, I use MIDI for it because it's just easier, MIDI to GarageBand. So I got that all set up and started on something, and I don't know how the technology, GarageBand, my keyboard, whatever, selected the sound, but it was a perfect sound. I'm like, hey, dude, I can use this, right? So that was the germ of the entire song, was that random sound that got selected by technology, just out of the gate. And I just went with it. And, I went with it into a bunch of corners where I got stuck. Right?
And okay, I got a question. How do you go with pieces, especially if they're your own? I find when they're your own compositions, they can stay on a shelf for a long, long time.
Oh yeah.
How do you do that when it's like when you're let's say developing something, and you know like what does that process look like? And what I mean too is like when it goes beyond okay, I had a writing session and it's not finished. What is that process like? How do you go back to it? How do you kind of massage and figure that out?
That was one of the corners. So uh, the music I just wanted one thing I was working on. So the music ideal was great. The rhythm was great. I decided to do it in 5/4. Got a bass line, got a comp line going. It was rocking. Everything was cool. Found a drummer. And GarageBand lets you sync all that stuff up, so you don't have to play it perfectly, and it really rocks, right? And then I'm looking at the melody that doesn't exist and the words that do exist and trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. So I just did it like 4 syllables at a time. Just came up with little 4 syllable atoms that could be strung together to make a molecular, lyric line happen. And it was hard work. And I got, the verse and the refrain done, and I just had to stop. It was like pulling teeth. It was just that painful. And it sat there for a couple of weeks. And finally, like Saturday, just this last Saturday, I thought, hey, I'm going to play the piano. So I fired everything up and I sat down. And immediately when I sat down, it was like, no, you're not going to play the piano, but you're going to finish that song. And dang it all, I finished the song. Right? It's like all of a sudden the ideas were there. And everything that had happened before, all the teeth pulling, made sense. And it flowed and it worked and everything was cool. And, the person who sent me the lyrics loved it. And, but it wasn't finished yet, right? There was still something that was missing. I'm just rambling on this. So, okay, so the thing was in E minor. I don't know why I chose E minor. Just, it's a decent key. And there's like, 2 chords in the whole piece. There's actually about 6, but there's 2, right? It's easy. There's no harmonic difficulty. The rhythmic difficulty in 5/4 is cool, and that makes it kind of drive. But it got all done, and it sounded like there was something missing. So I poked around in our good old friend, the solfeggio frequencies, right? And guess what the key E is really close to?
Yeah, which one?
It's 639. So E is like, 689 or something. So I just downtuned it in whatever I was using at the time to 639, changed the whole character of the entire song, and it just became that's when it was finished. Like I knew it was finished. And the lyrics, dang it all, the lyrics are 639 energy lyrics. They're all about, coming from the heart and just like that's heart chakra stuff, right? So it was just like, now it's done. Right. And I kept going back to like, what do I know? What's the thing? What? And then finally, yesterday morning, I discovered how close I was to 630. I should look up the solfeggio. You know how much I am not the monotone guy, right?
Yeah, I know, and the jury's still kind of out on solfeggio, although it depends on who you ask. But
Yeah.
What does it feel like for you? And this is going to be maybe a hard. I know for me it's a hard one to describe, but how does it feel when you're complete, or at least good enough complete of it, like you finish the song?
Oh, it's surprising. I feel like, oh, wow, I did that. It starts to get into you. But there's also, there's always 2 sides to the coin. So the other way that I knew that I was finished was the damn thing's an earworm. I've got it like stuck in my head now. Can't make it stop.
Doing something right.
Found a hook. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a process. I love hearing that because it is different for everybody, and it's also there's a lot of commonalities in the creative process too.
Have you done that before, where somebody hits you with lyrics and you're going, "Oh, geez, what do I do?" And
yeah, definitely. For me, I with melodies especially, I really don't think a lot about them. I really definitely just go into a flow state. I really I find for myself, especially with melody, I kind of just repeat a little progression over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and just play and play and play and play with different
So
melodic
do you build
ideas.
it from the harmony, or just build it from like picking up melody atoms?
Yeah, it really depends. It's funny how so many songs do get written really differently, at least for me. So that really does depend. But a lot of the time for me, I think more commonly is I'll work an idea out, and I'll pretty much do it until it becomes an earworm. You know, like I just work the melody until I'm like, this really feels like it's something that I want to keep singing
Yeah.
again and again. And then that typically is what, okay, that's going to be that main hook or that main melody. Okay, great. And then you kind of just move on to the next lyric and go through it like that. Sometimes the lyrics are not defined as a verse or chorus or bridge either. And you can kind
Right.
of,
Yeah.
but the melody almost kind of creates the chorus and verse sometimes, the structure in a way. So, and then sometimes depending on, you know, if it's my lyrics or somebody else's, like I'll mix and match or completely switch words that just kind of flow better with the new melody. I find I usually write melody first, lyrics second, but that's definitely not always the case. Sometimes the lyrics it's all about the lyrics and that's the idea. And then you kind of spend time finding a melody and a chord progression that'll go with that.
Yeah.
So it is so different. Each song is usually quite a different approach. Some songs for me on my own, when I'm doing just my own pieces, sometimes I'll come back to ideas that are very, very old. Recently, it's been a theme. I've been going back to a lot of old ideas that are like many, many years old, to be honest, and finding really fun new ways of playing them that make the song in a way feel brand new to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really fun. Like some of these melodies and riffs, I'm like, holy crap! I wrote that like 8 years ago. Like no joke, and yet it's sounding perfect right now with some of these things that I'm doing. I'm like, isn't that funny? You know, like that's why I do like. There's some. I'm sure a lot of creators out there some also have these hilarious libraries of just idea. Well, there's a good reason to keep those ideas, and you'll probably naturally remember the really good ones, the ones that you know you want to revive. They'll come back into your consciousness.
Yeah.
And it might be when you're noodling on something totally different, and then all of a sudden this old idea, this old melody comes in, and then you'll just start laughing at that connectivity of it all.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes how much we're stealing.
Well, there's no real original ideas, I don't think, not to take
Yeah.
away the creative process, but it's also just to have that humble look at it where you really are channeling, or if you want to look at it as a download, but regardless, those ideas are coming from somewhere. And it's not my brain, because my brain is, I'm turning that thing off as much as
Yeah. It's not about remembering some riff that Beethoven wrote that was used by somebody else, that was used by somebody else that now is going to be a part of. Although, it's one of those, when you learn in music school what the dies irae is, you hear it everywhere.
Right.
Da, 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 da. It's like, let's make it stop.
Well, there's definitely going to be melodies that you end up using, or chord progressions that are the same as so many other chord progressions.
Yeah.
But it's like, what's your own spin? I mean, even recently I'm doing these cover songs that either I flip the genre of it. So if it's like an old, jazz song, I'll make it like a hip hop or so, just flip the genre. Or what I've been enjoying are mashups. So I come up with a whole new chord progression and then try to stick to maybe one artist, but mash up 3 or 4 of their songs into one progression.
Yeah.
And see how that works. So it's like you're still taking existing old melodies, quote unquote, stealing, or just repurposing, and still it takes a creative flow to still even use existing things. So reusing, you can still have a very natural creative flow, I think, too.
Remixes are awesome. It's like the most honest we've ever been about stealing music.
Yeah, exactly.
And we get some great stuff. Do you remember back in the day, I think it was Verve that came out with the first remixes where they were getting their old jazz catalog out and then remixing it and layering on like modern sounds and stuff.
I don't remember that, but that sounds awesome. I mean, I love
90s
that.
maybe. And it was just, it was a great idea. And I don't know whatever happened to that, but it sure blew up because now everybody's remixing anything.
Yeah, remixes are really really fun. Really want to get some of my music remixed because my curiosity is like, what's someone else gonna do? Like what?
Right?
Like for me as the creator, I can't think of anything more of a compliment that someone remixes my tune. It's kind of a fun thing to hear something completely redone, and it is really. I remember last year I finally found Christmas remixes that were like really good and like tastefully done, like Bing Crosby, but doing like a
Right.
dub reggae or
Yeah. I heard
like a
some of that.
cool drum and bass or something. Where I'm like, what?
Christmas
That's
is big in our
awesome.
place. In fact, Rebecca's in the other room right now making bread and listening to Christmas music. It's like that's just who we are around here, right?
Yeah, it's a fun genre. So
It is.
and the remixes for me make it a lot more listenable, especially for anyone that has worked in retail or other places where
Seriously.
Christmas songs do get kind of destroyed. Not the fault of the songs; they're great songs, but it's just when you listen to anything a bazillion times and you're associating it with a bit of a maybe the not most fun job or something.
Oh man.
I can understand why some people just are like, I F Christmas music. Like, no, no, no. And I get it. I totally do. And those remixes I think are nice because not from my opinion, at least most people haven't heard them. So it gives a nice new spin on the beautiful Christmas songs that can be very overplayed.
Can be, yes. And are.
And are mainstream radio, of course. I mean, it's just the second Halloween
I'm thinking of my Nordstrom days, like, the day after Thanksgiving, Friday after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, right? We'd open early and it had to be Christmas music right from 8 o'clock or whenever it started. And that was a horrible gig because it's limited, to what you can play. So playing Jingle Bells 14 different ways in, 14 different genres or styles or whatever, it's all you could do just to keep your sanity. When I got another 4 hours in my shift and I've already played all 50 Christmas songs, right?
What was your gig again? You got to remind me of that.
Oh man, so back in the day, so Nordstrom, sort of high-end department store, had grand pianos in all their stores, and actual people in gowns or tuxedos playing them.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a great gig. I mean, it really was. I got to interact with people. I mean, for the people who liked it, for other people, it was just sort of a grind.
Oh yeah,
but it was a great gig, and the store I was at, one of them had a concert Steinway, the other one had a Steinway B. My home store was one with a Steinway B. It was like, well, it's hard to not play this piano for 4 or 6 hours a day. They kept them in great shape, It was a real commitment there. They're gone now. Been a while.
Yeah.
So great gig for quite a while for a lot of musicians.
I love those. Reminds me of the pianos in the airports.
Yeah,
all the airports have that, and I just love that. I mean, shows again that power and magic of music when just a bunch of strangers at an airport and then someone starts to noodle. Or I mean, I love to go do that, but I also love hearing other people. Usually a lot of people that you can tell are like they're not professionals, but they all just love to play.
They love to play.
A couple of songs they know how to noodle on, and they do, and it's just that kind of stuff. You're like, we just need more of that. I feel, more instruments just readily available to play. Like, why not? Street pianos are great too.
Yeah, street pianos. Some cities, I think Boston had one for a while.
Toronto did for a bit.
Yeah, just an upright piano sitting out some. They'd roll it out there and they'd just let it sit there for 4 hours, see what happened.
Yeah, they did the summer series, TD
Bank. Yeah.
Canada was great. It's great. All pre-COVID, of course, but
great things. Just to see what will happen. You reminded me of way back in the day, in the 80s, man. I was going through Chicago really early in the morning, like nobody was in the terminal. And I had one of those in-terminal walks where they drop you at one end of the building and your plane is at the other end, your next connecting flight, right? And I come up the ramp and out of the jetway and I look into this terminal and in front of me is this concert grand piano.
Hello.
World, what's happening to the world, right? And this is like in the 80s. Nobody had, and it was United. And I thought to myself that because there was that commercial at the time that used George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, the United commercial, right? It was their music on hold and all that. So my dream was to be able to play Rhapsody in Blue on that piano in the United terminal. Didn't happen. I have, however, performed Rhapsody in Blue together with the joke.
Amazing.
playing and say, "Thank you for calling United Airlines."
Please hold.
Please hold.
For the next 5 hours. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, thanks for reminding me of that. That's been a while.
Yeah, it's funny because even my dad, every time he's traveled to Europe, and typically Europe, a very popular airport for people to, transfer through is the Amsterdam airport.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got a piano and great food and bread and some of the better bakeries in any airport I've been in too. But the pianos are always a treat. And so a couple of times my dad sent me a video of just him noodling away on the piano, and I know it brings him a lot of joy. And it's just those little things, like we downplay a lot of these things with instruments, playing, just having things available, and encourage, and just having normal, regular, everyday people kind of noodling away and playing on these things more. I just think the more we do that, imagine every corporate environment has a instrument room,
right,
for people to go in and just jam and bang around a drum for a bit, or play a kazoo or a harmonica or whatever, and just have some fun with that, and let off some steam. I wonder how the productivity would improve. I wonder how blah blah blah, workplace, I don't know, camaraderie or whatever. Like,
I'm convinced. Let's do it.
Right? Like a music room in a corporate setting, I think would literally convert into higher productivity, blah, 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 all the positives that the business wants. I swear that would help. I don't have any stats on that, but there might even be out there already. Certainly with brain and cognitive function, we all know music is extremely helpful for all of that. So, I mean, who knows? We might be living, we may very well be living in an era where that is going to be shifting so much, especially in the next decade, with music and sound healing becoming far more mainstream, and all the stuff that we talk about on this podcast every single week becoming more mainstream, becoming more in the, it's funny, I was telling a friend recently about my summer doing these meditation workshops, and feeling like I was getting a good sense of the pulse of the everyday Joe and Jane, the everyday human. And one of the things I was really surprised was that people now have an actual idea of what something like a sound bath might be, or at least a meditation workshop.
Yeah.
They actually kind of know what that would be. And even things like breath work are in the lingo, at least, as I've heard of this thing called breath work. So even the fact that people are just asking about it more. When I say sound bath, they're like, they might not know what it is, but they've probably heard about it now, or they've heard that thrown around. They're like, yeah, what is a sound bath? But they're at least asking. If not, they're like, oh my God, I just started this thing called breathwork, or I just started this thing called I went to a sound bath and I just felt so good. Like, wow, tell me more, So it is clearly shifting in the collective consciousness, and we might start to see things like a music room, in a corporate setting, a bunch of bankers on their lunch jam and have like the banking band, or something. Like, how cool would that be?
Right. Battle of the bank bands.
Yeah. It's Chase versus, I don't know, other American banks. Like, I only know my Canadian ones, but you know what I mean? Like, that'd be hilarious. But again, I would be so curious if they did some studies and some statistics where they could somehow measure productivity before and after the music rooms are implemented. What would that do for company culture? What would that do for productivity, etc., and happiness, general, just overall workplace happiness, quality of life? I mean, geez, I feel like it would impact all of that.
We have some of that on drum circles. The trouble is that our research is funded by Break Fix. So if something's broken, you can get a research grant to evaluate your fix. What we don't have is research that's based on growth.
Right.
And maybe that shift is something that's happening as people become more aware of how powerful sound and rhythm can be. They'll say, hey, what if I tried this, right? And then they'll have their own evidence of how it worked, at Bank of America, wherever they were doing it, right? Some brave executive that wants to step outside the box, and pay for a music therapist to come in, for 4 months to see what happens, right? Lead a drum circle every week. There's got to be that kind of curiosity out there, Chris, because, trust the institutions to give you the fix for whatever's broken. that mentality is kind of breaking down a little, and the openness that results is, oh, well, I could do this. Like, I don't have to have a vaccination if I can do this. That kind of openness is getting there.
Oh yeah, and I just had a buddy of mine yesterday have a really funny encounter at a cafe, and starts talking to this stranger, this gentleman. They kind of just hit it off immediately. Start talking about breath work, meditation, all that good stuff, and he ends up finding out they ended up having like a 2-hour conversation. And
Wow.
this guy's multimillionaire who has many investments and businesses, and clearly understands wealth and money, and is extremely interested in all the stuff that we talk about here on our podcast, and wants to invest, wants to find more ways to bring these things into the public. So I'm already seeing in real life these shifts where the people with the money and the influence are also seeing what we're seeing. It's not just happening with the artists and the creatives and the people that also can make a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, and I'm a full believer in that abundance that we all have is all of our birthright. But at this point in my journey, I'm not a multimillionaire, and hearing it from someone who's a multimillionaire, and I know he's not the only one. There's a lot of people now with a lot of influence, a lot of money, that want these things and see the value on all fronts, not just the spiritual value.
Right. Yes. They get the
tangible value.
Yeah. It all ties together. We've gone way beyond the point where somebody can say, like, to music, if I do music therapy, how will that change my bottom line? That mindset has shifted to one that says, well, if I bring in a music therapist to a drum circle, regularly, I bet that's going to change the attitudes and the interaction in my team. And if that doesn't boost productivity, I don't know what could. Maybe I'll try that.
Yeah. Right. It's becoming very, very tangible and easy to see how it can be implemented.
That's the cool thing. You mentioned that a minute ago. I want to hit it because it's so incredible. We're at such a pressure point right now that anything that relieves that a little bit of that pressure is going to be like, oh my gosh, right? And so those of us who are working in that pressure relief field, like you and like me, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. No offense to the fish, and I'm not a gun advocate or anything. So maybe that was the wrong
but I know what you
analogy to make.
I know what you mean.
It's like people are so ready that it doesn't take much.
No, it's a funny place to be, because obviously we want peace, we want just overall happiness and joy for the whole planet, for everybody. So I don't want people to be stressed and in high anxiety. However, that is our current state.
It's our reality.
It is our reality, and I'm just grateful that we have a lot of things to offer, and basically to be in service to the rest of humanity with, and that nothing could feel better on my end than to do that. And at the same time, it is. I think for the creatives out there and the people that are in this, stress relief, let's say, industry of whatever that modality looks like, it is a bit of a golden age right now because of the unfortunate rise in mental health and every other issue on the face of the freaking planet, basically, is that it's like boiling point, and we need all the help we can get, and we have it. That's the encouraging.
Yeah, we have it, right. And it feels so good, right? Like you were talking about after your tour, it just feels so good when people come up to you and that, or everybody just spontaneously starts singing or mosh pitting or whatever people do. It's such a great thing to participate in that. Right.
I'll never not want to do that. No matter what the money situation, no matter what's going on, those are always experiences in life that I will happily have more of.
So you brought that money thing up, and I think it's important to hit that one here, because a lot of creativity is done for free, on your own time or whatever, or somebody hits you with a project and you have a heart for it, so you do it, or you're looking for an opportunity, so you just give your stuff away. But in my experience this summer, it's been much more reciprocal. There's something more than money that's going on here. And just the response I got from that crazy piece, the 5/4 piece that I sweat over and turned into a 639 hertz, the response I got back on that one was just so gratifying. It's like, well, the money's nice, but look, if this thing helps change people around, and it changes a lot of people, that's connected to rewards that are not just, altruistic. So let's just do it and put it out there and trust that, we're going to be sustained in this, whatever this is.
Yeah, and it is the golden age in a way to be doing this, right? And look at what's happening with psilocybin research and just the whole area of psychedelics. I find very much in intertwined and aligned with all these other modalities, right?
Right. It's all opening the same Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Bad. I got just don't let me make any more analogies, right? Because it's not Pandora that I'm after here.
No, I know, but I know what you mean. It's the opposite in terms of it's a positive Pandora's box.
Yes.
Up and all these.
Life is a box of chocolates.
It's a box of chocolates.
Yes. It's the chocolate box.
Yeah, exactly. So
unless you don't like chocolate, okay, forgive me.
No. Chocolate's great.
Exit stage right.
Yeah. Where's the cane?
Where's the hook?
No, I absolutely agree, and I would say a lot of my friends would agree too, who are all in those, whether they're doing body work, talk therapy, sound healing,
just business coaching. Everybody's
business
just
coaching, all of this stuff. Like people need support, people need help, and we need it all from each other in different ways, and help comes in different ways. You might not be a healer listening to this, but you might be a carpenter, but guess what? The work you're doing on someone's front porch is actually helping them a lot, because when that is done, that gives them a lot of joy, and then they can share beautiful moments with their family on that porch, and like you're contributing to their life in a positive way. So it's like we're just talking about the arts and the creative stuff in this podcast, but it truly applies to everything.
Oh yeah,
because everything is a creation. I mean, I've been creating an insurance plan. My grandfather and a lot of my family work in insurance. I mean, that's almost feels like the not antithesis of the arts, but it's certainly like the opposite.
Yeah.
And I tell them all the time, like, well, there's creativity. And when I'm on the phone with, an insurance agent, if I'm talking to someone who's really kind and compassionate and we have like a lovely interaction, I mean, I'm feeling really good about everything now all of a sudden. And took a stress and anxiety out of my life. So thank you. We all have an ability to contribute to this, new kind of, like civilization that we're trying to create now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Helping each other out, like look at the Maui fires, the biggest response that came was, and unfortunately, but also what a beautiful example of humanity, which was the locals. Everyone had to help each other out because, their government left them out to dry, or let them to burn more specifically.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what did they do? They had to come together, and they did. And they're helping each other so much. And that's just a microcosm of what I believe 99.9999999% of all humans are, is we just want to live with our loved ones, enjoy life, relax, eat good food, listen to some fun music, play, have fun, and ultimately just, be at peace, doing whatever the hell we want to do. And people want the best for one another, We do. We all want to be able to just be happy and at peace all together and live on this planet, whichever way we want to live. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing with this surge of people being more open to sound healing and things like that, where it's just like, let's just do whatever we can to get out of this old habit, this old crazy world that we used to live in that was very, very messed up for so many different reasons. And let's open up a new world where we all help each other. We're not really as competitive. We're collaborative. We're compassionate. We're community based, and we're all just going to help each other out in our own ways that we can, based on our God-given talents, essentially.
Works much better that way.
Yeah.
100%. You say something likewise, and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I gotta get onto another call anyway, but I would say for me, I mean, it's fun to talk about the creative process as well, because hopefully, audience, you guys listening, we always appreciate you tuning into our sometimes very free flowing conversations, or sometimes full on very topic based. Today, I enjoyed our conversation in free flow, and it really leaves me thinking a lot about creativity in the creative process, and not only understanding how you like to operate in the creative process, but the creative process itself, I think, is a form of healing. I really feel like it is in and of itself. Just you exercise play going through the creative process. You exercise really opening up your mind and shutting off the monkey mind, And these are all great techniques, to that translate into so many other parts of your life. So once again, if you're not a musician listening to this, we're just talking about a process that could apply to anything, and also try using music and that creative process in music as something that can stimulate creativity in the rest of your life and in other parts of your career. I can't tell you how many times. Well, I'll use the example of Einstein, right? Einstein played violin. Why? Well, because he loved it, but also because it got his right brain creativity fully opened up, ready to go, and then he would immediately then go right into a scientific problem and then work on that. So I think music has very direct, practical application in your everyday life. Let us know if you are using music for that. Maybe you come home after your 9 to 5 and you play guitar for an hour. How does that impact your mental health, but also your, dare I say, productivity?
Yeah, everything about your life. And hey, you don't have to play the violin or the guitar. Who is it? Winston Churchill is famous for walking. Go take a walk. But I'd suggest walking around with music. Like find an intentional song for your 1 hour walk, put it on repeat, and just let that intentional song mind you for an hour. However many times if you hear it, it's 5 minutes long. You'll hear it 12 times in an hour. See what happens to you under that influence. And the part of you that does EMDR without you knowing it is engaged in that, and the music's engaged in that. And, your right brain will, well, your left brain will be pretty noisy too, but your right brain will get a nice bath, sound bath.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like on this podcast telling us how great it all was. And, we'll interview you as a guest and you can lead the productivity charge, into the company music room. How about that?
I love it. Let us know, everyone. Let us know what outcomes you're having from involving the creative process into your life. And as always, thank you so much for listening, everyone. And Bill, thank you as always for co-hosting this. This was a fun conversation, as always.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I love these. These are just, I don't know. This lights up my week.
Me too.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Aho, everybody. You take care.